Alright guys, welcome back to Restore to Explore. Today, we're getting into all this panel work. At the moment, there's a lot going on. Things are already in their final stages of primer, but that's not where we started. So let's jump back to the start, and we'll get back here eventually. All of the welding and stuff done, and I've actually gotten a bit of bog on the panels. Now, I haven't filmed much of it, so I'm going to give you guys a quick rundown of where it's up to before we jump into some more sanding. So you'll see here the front apron's essentially all bare metal, and then you'll see the bits where there's just a really thin layer of putty over the top, and you'll see here where the metal's starting to come through. So I've sanded that down just to fill the highs and the lows. That had a pretty big ding in it, so I bashed out as much as I could, but you'll see there's a thin layer there as well down here, and all these areas here there's pretty dented, and it had heaps of bog on it, which we saw obviously after it got sandblasted. So yep, same thing with the guards, little bits and pieces in here. This one here as well still needs a bit more work down the bottom. Someone actually welded a panel into this one here, and it was a bit deformed, so we've got to sand this one down a bit more. And then obviously where we've got our plate in here, that was recessed just a tiny bit, so we've just had to fill that. It needs a bit more sanding, and actually needs a tiny bit more filling. There's a couple low spots there, so I'm going to go ahead now. There's still a bit more sanding that I want to get done, so get all the sanding done. Then I'm actually going to etch prime all the panels, because they're starting to get a bit of surface rust, being a bit rainy here, and just the moisture in the air is getting a bit of surface rust, so I'm going to sand that off before that gets any further, get some etch primer on these panels, and then they'll all be one color. We'll be able to see the highs and the lows a bit better. So going to jump into that sanding, and then we can get into etch priming hopefully later today. Raining again, and it gets a bit dark in here when it gets a bit cloudy, so I've just fitted these lights which I bought just a little bit ago. I've got a couple of LED lights up there, and it just makes these panels so much easier to see. You can see the highs and the lows a bit better, and what I'm going to do now is I've got some 400 grit. I'm just going to go scuff up the etch primer before I lay down some blade putty. So I'm going to go ahead, do that with the random orbital now, and get some blade putty on there to dry overnight before I go home for the day. Pretty much both the doors are really good nick, except this one has a tiny hole down here. There's actually lots of little holes, so I've just cut out the whole section of rust, and I've got the magnet holding a plate on there. I'm about to tack that one in, and I'm fairly sure that's the last bit, that's the last panel that needs rust repairs. Everything else is done. So after this, no more welding, and we'll be nearly on to getting primer on. right, we are ready to go. I have got every single panel for the car, including the cab, all laid out, all prep wiped, all sanded down. This is the first time I've done every panel at once. If you go back and look at the Kingswood build, you'll see how inefficient I was, and I'm just thinking back now. But anyway, you learn. So I've got the cab, bonnet scoop, bonnet, front apron, doors, and the guards, everything here, all laid out. It's all ready to go. Gonna get some paint in that gun, gonna get some paint on. Let's go. I am so happy with how this layer of primer turned out. It is silky smooth and I haven't even sanded it at all. So we're getting to the finishing stages. Those couple of bits on this guard that I said were raised from welds where there's a replacement panel in there, I've grinded them down and just put a little bit of filler over the top, so they're going to be flat now after I sand that once that putty dries. But this guard here is amazing. Those doors there, beautiful. The bonnet is great. There was just a bit of rust on the inside, just under here. Welded a plate in there and there. And I've just got some filler on there now just so I can sand it and you can't see any of the spot welds. Apron, got a couple tiny little dents and things which I'd missed the first time around, so thin layer of filler on that. And they're all pretty much ready to go. So from here on out, we're going to be starting to spray color. We're going to be spraying the firewall, we're going to be spraying the door jambs in the color, which you don't know what it is yet. So subscribe to the channel, comment down below what color you think this car is going to be, and I'll see you guys next time on Restore to Explore. Cheers.